My name is Owen, and I am the founder of LabRats International.
And why did you found LabRats?
We founded LabRats because we found that the international community and the voice of the veterans and the indigenous people and the people that are suffering the effects, the impacted communities around the world, needed a voice and needed a central point to be able to coordinate and raise awareness for recognition of what's happened to the victims of the atomic tests.
And you've also now are in partnership with some pretty important people, particularly one that got a Nobel Peace Prize. What's that all about?
Yeah, we are an ICANN partner, so the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, and we've been working closely with them on the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the TPNW, which had its first meeting of state parties last year in May and is having its second meeting of state parties this year in New York in November. We are concentrating our efforts on Articles 6 and 7, which is the victim assistance part of the treaty, which promises an international fund to help everybody that's been affected by nuclear testing, including the indigenous people, including the veterans, the downwinders, everybody that gets affected by the testing.
It's also been a huge last 3 years because you finally got a recognition for the atomic veterans in England.
Yes, we started our Look Me in the Eye campaign back in 2021. Because we were fed up with getting the same letter from the UK government that everybody got. We are thankful for your service, but there will be no formal recognition, but we are thankful for the service. It was the same paragraph in every letter that came back and back and back. So I sat down with a lady called Susie Boniface from a national newspaper in the UK called the Daily Mirror, which allowed us to give us so much publicity and allowed us to reach out to people who didn't know anything about the tests. And we sat down and said, look, how can we do this? What can we do about this fact that we get the same letter over and over and over again? And she came up with the idea of getting a nuclear veteran in front of the Prime Minister, because up until that point, the Prime Minister had never officially met a contingent of nuclear veterans, which is unbelievable, really. I think in 70 years that they've never met one. So we launched it with a group, a small cohort, specifically with one veteran, a guy called John Morris and his granddaughter Laura, who were a constituent of an MP called Rebecca Long Bailey, and she pushed it for us in the House of Parliament. So
look into the camera.
She is a Labour MP. So we worked really hard with Rebecca, and she did a lot for us to get us into the political arena. And we met with Sir Keir Starmer, who is the leader of the opposition, leader of the Labour Party, and he gave us a lot of time and said to us that our campaign was his campaign, which was amazing, which is absolutely amazing. Which then led us to meet the Manchester mayors, Andy Burnham and Steve Rotherham, who also backed our campaign, and we joined one of their campaigns called Hillsborough Law, which is a duty of candour for anybody who is a politician or civil servant or an MP, that if they tell lies or mislead, that they can be prosecuted criminally. So this is a new law that we can hopefully get passed. And we met with Boris Johnson, and Boris Johnson sat with us and met with us, which was an amazing achievement. In 18 months he'd sat and met with us.
That's fantastic. And also you're now getting funding for a couple of projects.
Yes, as part of the meeting that we had, we asked for a medal, we asked for funding so that the veterans were never forgotten, and we asked for an education package. So as part of the package, they put together a £450,000 fund, £250,000 for an oral history project, which is run by the University of Wales in conjunction with the British Library, and they're going to have 40 oral history testimonies from the veterans, which will then be recorded and made forever available to anybody researching or just listening in the British Library online and in person. You can go there and listen to the stories, which will be fantastic, because as you know, they're getting older and they will be forever recorded and the story will be their story. So that was one part of that. Then we had ourselves got funding to run the All Test Reunion, which is a reunion we run every year for 110 places. We've actually got 114 coming this year in September, which is fantastic. And they funded that for 2 years, so we've got next year's funding as well, which is great. And as part of this project, there is also an organisation called the Big Ideas Project, which is going to record 4 veterans, and they are going to be interviewed by children, which will be really, really powerful. So it's great. And then there is another educational package being done by another organisation, which will go out around the country and make sure the veterans are all together and make sure that they are working and make sure their needs are met. So it's great.
So how do you foresee children talking or interviewing these atomic veterans?
They're from the schools. There's 4 schools with 4 veterans, and the idea is that the schools are in Wales, England, Scotland and Ireland, and they will be interviewing it as part of their process. The interviews will go down to about 5 to 10 minutes, and the idea is that the veterans actually talk about their experiences and talk about what it meant to them to go, because a lot of them were national service. And these people were in, say, like a Welsh mining town, for instance. You are 18 years old, you've never even really been out of Wales. Now you're being whisked away, basic training, off to a paradise island in the middle of nowhere in the Pacific. They'd never seen a crab before, or some have even seen the sand before, let alone getting sunburnt on a desert island, on a coral reef. It was such a big change. It wasn't like it is now with the internet, and the news wasn't there. These people were sort of ripped from their families, and for some of them, they were the main person that they're getting the money for the families. At 18, they were looking after their siblings. There was larger families then, and then they were gone off a year on this island to be experience their nuclear test as well.
So what are the goals this year for lab rats and into the future that you think?
So the medal was awarded this year it was awarded last year in November, and then this year they released the criteria for it, and that was in March. So we've got the criteria. We've had over 2,200 applications, of which 1,800 have already been approved. The medal design has been approved, and that is in production, and we're hopeful that the medals will be on the chests of the veterans for Remembrance Parade. So we have 30 places at the Remembrance Day Parade in London at the Cenotaph, where they will be marching for the first time wearing a medal issued by the King. We're also hopeful that there'll be an event before then where the King will actually give these medals to these veterans in person, which will be absolutely amazing, and really what would be the pinnacle of the medal campaign, to actually get them presented by the King, and the King recognising for them for their service, which would be brilliant, because unfortunately so many of them have gone before the recognition that they deserve.
Yeah, that's a shame. So when is Remembrance Day?
It's the 11th of November.
Yeah, a lot of them have gone kind of late for them.
Yes.
So what message would you like to give to the world about nuclear weapons right now?
One of the big things that we're working on is education. That's where our focus is now shifting, now that we've got the medal and some recognition. We continue the fight for compensation and further details on that, but we really want to focus on education for the next couple of years, because there are generations of children and generation of adults that don't even know that Britain tested nuclear weapons. And we need to turn that around. So we're working on an educational video, we're working on some educational cards and a pack that can go out to schools, and 11 to 16-year-olds can watch this video, they can interact with the packs, and teachers can start teaching them about it, because it covers all the subjects. It covers history, it covers geography, politics, you've got the scientific side. Pretty much every subject in a school could take bits of the nuclear testing and put it in, and at the moment it's not taught. If you go to the Imperial War Museum and go to their Cold War exhibit, we have an A4 piece of paper on the end about nuclear testing, and it was a lot bigger than that. So that's our goal. We have our Lab Rats Academy, which has been extended now. There's a full diary of, you can go to any day, so you could go to today and it will tell you all the nuclear tests that happened on this day. So the idea is that they will work together with the schools. People can look up the diary. We're now on the Welsh Baccalaureate, which is a educational package where children can go and choose a subject and go and research it themselves. So nuclear testing is on there for the very first time. So our goal is to make sure that they are never forgotten, the veterans, the families are never forgotten, and what they did is never forgotten. So that generations coming through will always be able to look up, access the material that's needed to, and that they will forever be there in history. With these oral history projects, you can actually listen to the stories of the veterans from the veterans, which I think is key.
And that's great, but one of the uphill fights that we all know about is we live in a culture where we think a 3-year-old iPhone is ancient. And so we have these nuclear weapons that have been basically for 2 generations. The generation of parents before, how do you deal with that?
One of the things we're trying to deal with is with ICANN is to abolish nuclear weapons, and the TPNW does that. And one of the things that we're working really hard with ICANN is working with lots of other organizations and attacking it from all different directions, with organizations such as CND, organizations such as Veterans for Peace. You've got us side from a veteran side, you've got the indigenous people. Everybody is attacking the fact that these nuclear weapons, and we know because we've got first-hand accounts, the damage and the devastation that these weapons can do. It's just unbelievable that these guys stood there and witnessed this. You know, my father stood there and witnessed this detonations, and we never want that to see that ever to happen again. And only through education and only through making sure that people are aware of the consequences of this nuclear testing and what happens when they detonate one of these weapons, and to see it and to understand what it does, that is how we're going to get these weapons eradicated from the world. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, because it's not. It's not going to be easy in the political world that we live in, especially what's happening in Russia at the moment. But we are making inroads, and that's the big thing. And together, all together, we're stronger, got a bigger voice. You can listen to the people. We can use the anniversaries of testing. We can use the anniversaries of Hiroshima. We can use the anniversary of Nagasaki. We can make sure that these voices are never forgotten. It's not ancient history. You know, Britain tested up until 1991 in the Nevada desert underground testing. That is not that long ago. And these guys that experienced this, went through this, developed it, the indigenous people, have been affected forever and will be affected forever. And we've got to get that point across. It's not something that just happened. It was terrible that it happened, and it's not affecting anybody now. It's affecting everybody on the planet now. And that's the key message to get across. That there are places that you shouldn't go to still. The Montebello Islands in Maralinga still says it's radioactive, and only stay here for an hour. Don't pick anything up. Don't disturb the dust. We shouldn't be living like this. We shouldn't be having that sort of areas where you don't go to. You know, these poor indigenous people with their lands, their sacred lands are gone. The runic dome, you know, cracking and seeping material. I mean, what are we doing? You know, it's crazy. It's ridiculous. And one of the messages that I wanted to get across is we wouldn't do it now. We wouldn't do it now. What we know now, we wouldn't do. You know, there's lots of threats about nuclear weapons, and I'll push the button. I've got more nuclear weapons to deal with it. But to do it would take a crazy person to do it. To retest would be crazy. It's just we know the effects, so we don't need to have them on the planet at all. But we can only do that through education and to keep the story alive, and we don't want the story to go.
Excellent. And we don't have any crazy people in the world, so we don't have anything to worry about.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah.
So one of the things I just realized that we've never done, which I think we ought to do, how do you get in touch with Lab Rats, and how do you get merchandise?
So we have a website, labrats.international is our website, so www.labrats.international. We also have an academy where you can go and look up all the details. I'll talk about the education, which is labratsacademy.online. All the links are on our website. We've got lots of videos on our website as well, information about the medal. So if there's any British nuclear veterans or Commonwealth veterans, because the medal is for the Commonwealth veterans, to want to go and look up all the details about the medal and the criteria and how to apply and how to download the form, that's all on the website as well. Plus all our contact details about the reunion and the All Test reunion, if anybody would like to come along for next year. We're fully booked this year, but for next year, if anybody would like to come along for the first time. And really it's about building this group of people, making sure that no matter where you are in the world, you could be anywhere in the world, whether you're on the Marshall Islands, whether you're on Christmas Island, there is a community out there that care about this, that care about the tests, and care about what happened, and still care about the world today. And that's a beautiful thing for people that are coming in that think they were alone, or they find out that their grandfather is just, oh my God, I've just realised, my grandfather's unfortunately passed away. I've got all this documentation to say that he was at Christmas Island or he was at Maralinga. I don't know anything about it. I want to explore it. I want to find out. All that information is there on our website, and all that's there, as well as Facebook groups. You can talk to people, you can interact with the group, and that's the key thing, is that we're a big community, a large community who have been affected by the tests, and you will see that there's a whole network of people that care about them.
Plus you have a publication.
A publication?
Yeah, the Atom.
Yeah, we do.
So,
every quarter, so we have 4 editions a year. We have Atom magazine, which goes out in the post, in printed format and in email format, and keeps everybody updated as to what's going on around the world with nuclear testing. We have what's happened with the medal, for instance, recently. We have articles from people all over the world, so the NAAV commander writes an article, but we also have veteran stories, people looking for their veterans colleagues where they have lost contact with them over many years. They put that in the magazine as well, and it just tells everybody what's going on, so you can still feel part of the community. Unfortunately, a lot of the veterans are 75 plus, and they don't necessarily have the internet, so we print it so that they can read it up.
So anything else?
All we'd like to say is that to anybody listening to this who thinks we're going to go away, we're not going anywhere, and the education for younger generations will continue. And as was told by me by an atomic veteran who is no longer here, you are not going to airbrush him from history.
That's excellent. But the other last thing is, what the hell does this mean? Great. Make America Great Britain again. What does that mean?
It was a joke that we had with the NAV commander over many years. When I came to the conference last time, he got me a Star Trek uniform because we were arguing over Star Trek, and I put it on. So we've had these put on. We laughed and joked about the Capitol Hill riots, and I joked with him and said, well, at least when the British came to Capitol Hill last time, we actually burnt it down before we left. So that's why we have these made.
Well, it's a good thing you're in Tennessee, because they would go crazy if they saw that. We're in the South, buddy. Oh, that was great. Thank you.